Hi, this is Sandi Maki, and it's time for a little bit of heavy breathing just before midnight. Last night, I read the book that a friend of mine wrote, 10 Little Rules for a Blissy Life by Carol. And it is a fantastic reminder with simple rules, which are more like guidelines, knowing Carol's intent for the book, guidelines for living a blissy life. One of them sticks with me almost every day when I walk through my house, especially now that it's the holiday season and we seem to be a society driven by our need to give and receive stuff, especially at this time of year. Well, I can tell you that there's no stuff that I am currently doing without. I have plenty of stuff. I have leftover stuff, and I have enough stuff to gift to people. And then when I look at the piles of stuff that I have that could be useful and helpful to someone else, I almost get this sense of overwhelmingness that I don't even know where to start. So I'll be starting at the holiday party trying to thin out my bookshelves, which, is there such a thing as too many books? I don't think so. Although I can recall when a friend of mine, actually two friends, Gary and Leslie, were relocating. They were getting rid of some of their books, and I shouldn't say getting rid of, they were passing them on to people who would appreciate them. And I understand that their living room was wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. And I think that their floor may have even been reinforced to handle the load of the books. And when the last book came out, it's almost as if you could hear the house creaking and sighing that, ooh, the floor can come back up to level because there's not all this weight of books on it. So I don't know about you, but if you're anything like me, I think you probably have more than enough stuff also. Well, in Carol's book, 10 Little Rules for a Blissy Life, one of her suggestions is to purge regularly. Purge the stuff that you have in your life that's extra taking up space. And for me, purging stuff physically also translates to mentally, because when I have less physical stuff, then I also feel symbolically as if there's less other stuff that I have to deal with. Well, I've been thinking about Carol's suggestion and a couple of the rules that she had been following since she was a child. So a couple of the rules that people arbitrarily hang on to are if your mother-in-law gives it to you, she expects to see you use it next Christmas. Use it, wear it. If we have any of those special sweaters that someone knit for us that really we wouldn't necessarily wear out in public, it's nice to look at those and think of the person that was thinking of you when they made them. But realistically, I don't know where that fits. Or the next one, if your mom gives it to you, you must keep it to give to your children. That's a good one. Or if your children made it, you must wear it every Mother's Day until those macaroni noodles simply crumble away. These are rules for hanging on to physical stuff that we probably don't necessarily need to hang on to. So Carol has 3 simple rules when it comes to what to keep. She keeps only what she believes is beautiful, useful, or fun. My rules would be adapted to be keeping things I find beautiful, useful, or that I love. Which brings me to my current dilemma. I have a mug that was given to me several Christmases ago by my son. You know when they're in elementary school and they have the secret shopper workshop and everybody gets to bring in $5 and they have items priced from $1 to $5 that the kids can shop for the people in their lives so that they're surprise gifts. Well, this is one of those gifts. It's a little mug, and you'll see a picture of it here on my blog. Snoopy with a heart. And it's the mug for my mom, which he gave to me several years ago, and I love the mug. Now, I'm not a coffee or a tea or a hot drink drinker, so I've not ever actually used the mug for its intended purpose. No, this mug ended up holding toothbrushes in my bathroom, which is, you know, a handy and useful use for a mug. And when I see the mug and I remember that my son gave it to me, it makes me happy. But here's the dilemma. I have more than one of these mugs that were selected at the secret shopper events. And how many toothbrush holders does one person need? And once you use a mug as a toothbrush holder, then you can't really put it back in your cupboard for use. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but it's just not a good idea. So I have several mugs that I've used as my toothbrush mugs, and it's probably time for me to let some of them go. And oddly enough, I'm having an attachment to this particular mug, and I can't decide if it's really time for me to let it go. Well, I know when I look at the mug, it's not that I love the mug, it's that I love that I can look at it, and when I look at it, I see that my son got it for me, and obviously he chose it because it says Mom on it, and there's a heart, and there's Snoopy, and they're just really cute. So instead of me loving the mug, I'm actually loving the thought that the mug conjures. So then is there anything wrong with holding on to something like that? Well, not really, if you live in a museum, and you have lots of room for extra stuff. Because I'm sure there's many other ways and many other things that my children have done that I am hanging on to, and there's many of things that they've done that I've let go back into the universe. So why am I having such a dilemma with this particular mug? I think a part of me is saying that I really don't need to keep it. I don't need it. It doesn't have a practical purpose in my house anymore. And yet, I can't let it go. Then I thought, well, let's find out how my son feels about the mug, because maybe if he feels the same way about the mug that I feel about the mug, then it will validate the fact that I'm supposed to keep the mug. So I asked him, Kyle, do you remember the Snoopy mug that you got me? I was actually holding it at the time. Do you remember when you got this for me? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you remember feeling anything in particular when you chose this particular mug for me? He said, no. I said, well, I've been using it for my toothbrushes, and I have another one, and I think maybe it's time for me to let this mug go, but I don't want to let it go if you'll be sad. And he said, I don't care. And I said, yeah, but weren't you feeling all these emotions when you picked this out for me, thinking it was just the thing that I was going to love? And he said, I don't remember. So I have an attachment to this mug, but it's not really the mug. It's the attachment to the story that I told myself about him selecting this mug. So that's interesting. And then I thought, well, what could I do? I could take a picture of the mug so that I could always look back at the mug and I could remember the story that I told myself about my son choosing it for me, and then I could remember my dilemma with giving it away, and then I could ultimately decide that, you know what, I decided it was time for the mug to go, but hey, look, I still have this picture, so I can revisit it anytime that I want to. Do I really think that looking at the picture is going to conjure the same feeling as looking at the mug? I don't really know. But I was thinking it was worth a try. And then I thought, well, I'll do one better. I'll do a blog post about the mug and put a picture so that forever on the internet, I'll have a reminder of the story that I told myself about the mug. And then I thought, well, I do this thing called heavy breathing. I might as well just share my thoughts with the world and then with myself so I can listen to it again later, so I can remember the story about the mug that my son got for me and how I felt about it. And I'm doing all this in the hopes that it makes me okay with letting go of the mug, and guess what? I really don't know that I can. I don't know that I am willing and able to give up this physical reminder of the story that I've told myself, because I'm already living into the future. And I'm thinking about what happens when my son grows up and he moves out and I miss him because he's busy living his life. Will I want this mug as a reminder then? I don't know. But I can anticipate that that could go either way. I could either have the mug and not need it, or I could give up the mug now and wish that I had kept it. I think the secret to this is all in preserving our thoughts and our memories and our feelings and letting go of the physical stuff and allowing that feeling to travel with us. And sometimes in those feelings, I think we need totems Totems are things that trigger a thought or trigger a memory, because we have so many thoughts in our mind and we have so many memories in our mind that in order for us to access the mailbox or the filing cabinet that we put something in our mind, which is so full of all of our experiences to this point in our life, we need something to jog that pathway and get that to open. And for me, and the thoughts of my son in elementary school, shopping to get me a gift, this opens that for me. So not only do I think about the story that I tell myself that I think he was thinking, but I also think about some of the things that I thought about when he was younger. I don't know what the secret is to this balance in our lives. I know some people can live very minimalistically, and some people live surrounded with lots and lots of stuff. There's got to be a happy place in there somewhere. And I think more often than not, we are on the verge of maybe not such a balanced place. If you came to my house and you looked around my basement, does it look balanced? Yeah, not quite. Is it incredibly out of hand? Not at all. So I ultimately don't know what this answer is. I know that for now I'll be keeping the mug as my spare toothbrush holder, because I have my other toothbrush holder currently in use, so maybe I'll swap them out. So in the meantime, I have to find a place to store the mug. Is it really taking up that much space in my house? No, it's 1 cup. But when you add 1 plus 1 plus 1, you end up with a house full. So looking at Carol's rules, is it beautiful, useful, or fun? I wouldn't call it particularly beautiful, and yet I would call it ultimately beautiful. Is it useful? Well, it is useful, but it's useful to a point, and then it's just taking up space. So when it's in use, it's useful, and when it's not in use, it's not useful. So I don't know. Is that the ultimate decision of useful? Her third one was fun. Is it fun? I don't know. My third one is, do I love it? And I don't love it, but I love the energy that it carries and the things that it makes me think about. Well, here's the kicker to this whole story. I was driving home from town the other night with my son, who's currently 13. And he said, "Mom, when am I going to have to move out of the house?" And I said, "Why do you ask? You're only 13. He said, "Well, I need to know. How long can I stay?" And I said, "Well, I really don't have a certain date in mind, although in the back of my mind I'm thinking, well, I sort of thought when my kids moved out of the house, maybe I'd end up in a condo, or maybe I'd be a little bit more free to roam. Who knows? But I really have no definite plans. So, Kyle, I don't really have an answer for you." Mom, do you think I can stay till I'm 40? I said, I don't know. Do you want to stay until you're 40? I think he's already planning ahead how much effort he's going to have to put forth so that he has a place to live. And as long as he's comforted by the fact that I'm not going to kick him out until he's 40, he might just plan to stay that long. Well, that adds a whole nother level to the dilemma of the mug now, doesn't it? Because if my son plans on living with me till he's 40, then I really won't need the mug, because I'll be able to look at him just about every day. Except some days, maybe I'd rather look at the mug and think about the memories, knowing that he's well on his way and living his life in the way that he'd like. But maybe the way that he'd like is living at home forever. Who knows? So it's awesome that he's contemplating this, and it's awesome that he'd want to stay in this place that long. I know so many people who hit the end of high school and can't wait to get away to go to college, or can't wait just to get out and strike out on their own. And then there's obviously some who are comforted in the same and in their routine. I don't know what the answer to that will be. I know that there's no deadline. I'm not kicking him out on a certain day. And in the meantime, I'll be hanging on to the mug.